Hi everyone, welcome back to Teachings with Dr. Mo. I'm Dr. Mo, and in this video, we're going to be going over a short excerpt of a larger case study that I have permission to use from a practitioner. So let's dive right in. So this case study, I chose it because it highlights the gentle techniques very well. So let's start from the beginning, and I'm going to kind of go line by line, giving you a bit more elaboration and detail on the techniques themselves and how it was used in this case study, and if applicable, what could have been done better. Okay, so the case study goes, to apply the tearless trauma, I asked where he wanted to put the event, where it feels safer, where it felt safer. Questions that the practitioner used were, what is it going to make it safer? How do you want to see it? And the it in question is the event itself, the very intense event that the client is tuning into that feels so intense that a large state of dissociation or distance is needed. And in the scale of gentle techniques, tearless trauma is the one that induces the highest state of dissociation. So that keeps the client the safest. It's the least exposure to the stressful stimulus. And what characterizes tearless trauma is that there is distance that is used. Often it's like imagery or metaphoric or symbolic distance between themselves and the event. So that's the first thing. The second thing is guessing. You want them to guess the intensity or the subjective unit of distress, the SUDS, if they were to tune into it. But be clear to tell your client, don't tune into it, just give me a rough guesstimate. If that were to happen, what would it be? So to recap, tearless trauma is defined by distancing the client from that thing, that event, it in this case, and also having your client guess, if they were to tune into it, what would the intensity of that be? So your SUD is a guesstimate. You're not instructing your client to actually tune into the event because it's too intense to do so. So the practitioner in this case asked the client where they wanted to put the event. So they asked them to create that distance, and that's a really good thing. So as I mentioned before, tearless trauma is helpful when you use imagery or metaphor or some sort of symbolism that helps the client visualize that thing, that event being outside of themselves. So this is often used by simply saying that thing over there. Or you can go a little deeper and create that distance, really get detailed into what that distance means. Where is it? Is it in a box? Is it in a circle? Is it on the moon? Is it in Connecticut in a shoebox under the stairs? You can get really specific, but the goal is to instruct your client to put it in a place away and outside of themselves. It could be outside of the room that they're in, outside of the house that they're in. Like I mentioned in the examples before, it can be fictitious, it can be fantasy, it can be in another galaxy, whatever that client resonates with them, that's going to make them feel the most safe, knowing that that thing is far, far away. Okay, so that's step one, and this practitioner did such a great job with it. And the client responded that he wanted to put it inside of a bouncy ball, and roll it down the road. Perfect. So we have this kind of metaphor and this very strong visual of where that thing, that event is now. It's in a bouncy ball and it's rolling down the road. Okay. Now the next thing, now that we've established distance, is to get a guesstimate of the intensity if your client were to tune into it. Right? So the practitioner in this case asked him to estimate the intensity if he were to imagine the event. Perfect. And this practitioner did a great job of saying, I told him not to imagine it, but just guess the intensity, right? Not go into the details of the event, but just guess that if he were to do that, what would the intensity be? Okay, so the client responded that his guesstimated SUD score was a 7. Okay, so with tearless trauma, you'd like that guesstimated SUD to eventually get to a 3 or below before you can even think about transitioning into another technique or doing something else. Okay, so the practitioner then went on to tap on several rounds using this setup. Even though I have this event in a bouncy ball rolling down the road and I don't even know where it goes, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Perfect. So that would be the setup using the client's exact words. I'm assuming that the client said, I don't even know where it goes. I'm hoping. Using exact words is very, very important. I love how they incorporated the visual that reinforces that distance that they created, where the event is. The event is in that bouncy ball. Just focus on the image of the bouncy ball rolling down the road. You don't need to focus about the specifics of the event. That's not the intention of tearless trauma. Tearless trauma is to induce a state of dissociation by using those visuals, using that imagery, using that metaphor to your advantage, and then always checking in after several rounds, 1 or 2 rounds, depending on your feeling for what the client needs, of the guesstimated SUD. If they were to tune into it now, what would it be? So I'm guessing that they went on after doing those setup statements and their reminder phrases that after several rounds, the SUD score dropped to a 1. That's perfect. So that is far below a 3, which is the goal of tearless trauma before transitioning into something else. So at this point, the practitioner asked if he had any bodily sensations while they were tapping. So this indicates a transition into chasing the pain. I tell my mentees to keep chasing the pain and tearless trauma separate until that SUD of tearless trauma goes down to a 3 or below. Why? I feel that it's safer to do that when you're dealing with very stressful, traumatic situations, because tearless trauma is to induce dissociation. Oftentimes, when you ask people to tune into their bodies and access those somatic sensations, that's kind of inducing introspection. It's inducing the opposite of dissociation. They're bringing it up stronger in their mind. So that could easily lead to flooding. So that's why I always recommend kind of just using tearless trauma, pure and simple, not asking about emotions, not asking about body sensations, just focusing on that mental picture of where that thing is. It's on the moon. It's in a star floating on Rainbow Road. It's in a container in a storage unit in Milwaukee. Okay. Focus on the imagery, the visual, the metaphor, the symbol before asking them, where do you feel this in your body? What's the emotion? Those questions are very, they can induce emotion and flooding, which is not what we want with tearless trauma. Okay, so the less is better with tearless trauma. But in this case, she had the SUD go from a 7 to a 1. So now you can transition out of tearless trauma. She chose to do chasing the pain, which is awesome. Moving forward, the client said he felt a little something in both of his calf muscles. Wonderful. So you can get a little bit more specific about the intensity of that sensation in his calf. How intense is it, 0 to 10? Are there any other qualities of that sensation? Does it have a color, a texture, a shape, etc.? All of those really juicy questions of chasing the pain. And so they went on, they tapped on this body sensation. Even though I have this little something in both my calf muscles, I love and accept myself. So they chose to kind of keep it just as this little something, which is great. I'm assuming that was the wording of the client, which you always want to use the client's exact words. Okay. And moving forward with this chasing the pain, they were able to get this sensation to a 0.5, which is perfect. It's perfect. So at this point in the session, they had used tearless trauma. They transitioned into chasing the pain, right? But no specifics of the event were actually uncovered, right? They didn't tap on any specific aspects of the event. And so now is the time to go a little deeper, right? If the client is willing and ready to do so, then you can get more into basic recipe, maybe even tell the story, and just get a little bit more specific and chip away at the specifics of that event. Okay, so I do hope that this little debrief was helpful. If you'd like more mentoring guidance, you can always sign up for my mentoring Patreon, which the link is in the description box below. On that Patreon, I do a lot more of these debriefing of case studies, a lot more examples using EFT in real sessions. And also you have the opportunity to get help specifically from me, asking your questions directly to me, and I will give you either video or written responses very promptly as always. So I really hope that this video has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below, but I will see you in the next one. We'll talk and tap soon. Bye.